Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again, specifically to the state of California, which as many of us already know is where the whole American craft beer movement began. And for this review we're going to return to one of those breweries who were there since the very start actually. So for this review we're going to return to Lagunitas Brewing Company, who are from Petaluma, and we're having a taste of their Waldo's Special Ale today. So this one should be really interesting. This guy comes in at 11.7%. It is an IPA. It says on Rate Beer and things that this is a double IPA, but to be honest with you, I think this one is one that's starting to, breach triple IPA territory. But it should be a very nice beer. It's got a rating of 97 overall on Rate Beer, and it's rated well into the 4 stars on Untappd as well. So really looking forward to trying this one. I've enjoyed the other beers that I've had from Lagunitas before, and hopefully this is yet another one that follows in the same light as that. And this was a beer that was released through the small partiers in Systembolaget here in Sweden, I believe on the 26th of April 2019. So really looking forward to trying this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Lagunitas before. No doubt I will add some more to that in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Lagunitas Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Lagunitas Brewing, as I mentioned to you earlier, are based in Petaluma in California, but they were founded in the very small town of Lagunitas by Tony McGee back in 1993. Lagunitas, of course, is located just to the north of San Francisco. It looks as if it's about an hour outside of the main city itself, maybe a little bit more. But this brewery very quickly outgrew its very kind of humble beginnings, and they were distributing to around 32 American states in 2011, and in 2012 they announced plans for a second brewery in Chicago, which would take the brewery's capacity up to 600,000 barrels of beer per year. But this brewery began production in April of 2014, and they added an on-site tap room soon after that, and as of 2014 they were the 5th best-selling brewery in the US, and I think that was actually overall including some of the macro breweries as well. But in September of 2015, Heineken International purchased a 50% stake in the brewery, meaning an increase in the brewery's international operations, and this was very, very controversial for them actually, particularly among the fans, because Tony McGee had previously stated that he wouldn't sell the company, and I believe fairly recently as well that Heineken have taken full ownership of the company from Tony McGee, although he is still involved and running the company basically for Heineken. But yeah, a really interesting brewery this one. Like I said, these guys have been around since the very, very early days of craft beer in California. There are breweries that are older than them and things, of course, like Sierra Nevada and stuff like this, but these guys have been around since the very early stages as well, and along with the likes of New Belgium, I think this brewery in particular was one of the ones that grew to be very, very big actually. But yeah, a really interesting company this one. Some people don't like to drink their beers anymore because they are owned by one of the big boys, but they do still keep the quality of their beers up there, and a lot of people that have commented on my videos previously seem to agree with that. But do let me know your opinions on that in the comments section below. It's always great to hear from you guys what you think about that as well. But this was yet another beer that we got through the small lots through Systembolaget here in Sweden, and it's always interesting for us to get different beers from some of the really well-known American craft breweries. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Lagunitas just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and things like that, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on at the brewery. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So when I was looking at the brewery website earlier, this particular beer has a really interesting story behind it. So it's named after the Waldos, who were a group of high school students that had a treasure map, and they used to meet at 4:20 every day after school, after their football practice, to drive away into the hills and try and find this lost field, if you like, basically this treasure trove of pot plants in the Lagunitas Hills. But they never actually found the plants, but their coining of the term 420 Lewis break in which they used to say as a code to each other in the hallways at the high school, really caught on, and it spread over the whole of America. I think they used to, so this is why the term 420 means weed in America these days. But apparently Tony McGee used to drive the same routes as the Waldos did when he started up his first brewery in Lagunitas, and so they used to so they decided that they would get together and actually make a beer together, and this was the story of the Waldo's Special Ale. So really kind of interested actually that. It's one of the more random stories that I've heard when it comes to the name of a beer and things like that. So yeah, and from what I gather as well, Lagunitas have had several legal problems when it comes to apparently supporting the cannabis industry, although from what I remember, California and Colorado and things, there are a few states in America that have now legalized cannabis or marijuana or weed or whatever you want to call it. So it's a really interesting one. But yeah, a brewery that seems to have a little bit of a hippie culture into it, and the 420 does seem to be recognised throughout the US as a sort of slang term, if you like, or a vernacular for weed. So yeah, this is basically a weed beer, this one. But that's all you really need to know about the beer itself. Let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is 11.7% double IPA, although I guess technically this one could be a triple IPA at that particular ABV. But yeah, I'll let you have a little look at the artwork of this one, and then we can open it up. You know, so pretty similar in terms of its artwork compared to some of the other Lagunitas ones. There you can see the little dog there on the side, and that of course is on the bottle cap of this one too. Doesn't say anything about, but it says that in particular this one was brewed in Chicago in Illinois. But yeah, Petaluma, Lagunitas Brewing Company, Petaluma, California, and Chicago, Illinois. This particular one was brewed in the Chicago brewery. But yeah, let's get it out and get on with the tasting then. We'll just see how we get on with this beer. The last one that I had from Lagunitas, of course, was the brown sugar, and I have reviewed the Maximus for you a couple of years back as well. But we'll get it out and into the glass and see how we get on. One thing I'll say about this beer as well is that this one is supposed to have over 100 IBUs. Exactly what the point in that is, I'm not quite sure, but you know, you can never go wrong by adding more hops to a beer, to be honest. But when it comes to being over 100 IBUs, we can't actually detect that. So yeah, the other beer I had, of course, that was similar to that was the 1000 IBU beer, which had 1000 calculated IBUs in it from Mikkeller, just over the water in Copenhagen in Denmark. So yeah, but yeah, let's get on to the tasting and actually have a look at this beer itself instead of gabbing on. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's poured, to be fair, this one's a kind of nice bright orangey amber colour. It's quite a normal kind of orangey, blood orangey colour, this one. There's a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say, perfect white head on this one. Maybe it has a little bit of a cream tinge to it, but it's fading away very quickly to be a really thin foamy layer. The beer does have a fair degree of transparency to it. This one, by the looks of it, is more of a West Coast style IPA than a New England IPA. This is a fairly old beer, if you like, by comparison to some of the New England IPAs. This beer's been around for a good 6-7 years from what I gather, but one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it does look pretty nice, I have to say. So yeah, let's take a closer look at that aroma and just see how we get on. Nothing particularly surprising about this one in terms of its appearance when you consider that it is an IPA, regardless of whether it's a double or a triple IPA. But let's take a look at that aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Oh, yeah, you can tell straight away when you smell this beer that it is a bit of a boozy beast. And I will say, this is one of the things with the American beers being imported in Sweden. You can smell that this beer isn't at its freshest. You can smell that the hops have dropped a little bit out of this one. And unfortunately, you know, Systembolaget, some of their rules, it does, the importers that bring these beers in, this one in particular is imported by Galatea, which is one of the bigger food companies here in Sweden. You know, it's a bit annoying because some of these beers that they import from America, they lose their freshness. Galatea aren't the only company that are guilty of this, but you know, bear that in mind when I'm reviewing this beer. This one isn't at its freshest when I'm drinking it. But yeah, straight away you can smell that this one has a nice boozy backbone to it, a good bit of sweet caramel in there. You can smell some of the smoother, slightly bready notes from the malt in there. I think they'll have used, you know, two-row malt in this, just going by the aromas. I do suspect there's a little bit of two-row malt in this beer, just because of the sweetness, the kind of biscuity notes that are coming out of it. But it does have a little bit of that smooth bread, you know, as I mentioned, a little bit of a kind of biscuity sweetness in there, and also some slightly richer caramel, maybe a little touch of a toasty note as well. But yeah, the malt base of this beer does smell pretty nice, but you do still get a good bit of a hoppy quality out of this beer. So some nice floral aromatic notes to it. It does have a little bit of a spicy quality in there as well, which is quite interesting. And you can pick up some of these lighter grassy notes there. So the green side of the hop's still kind of coming out a little bit. It does have a little touch of earthiness in there as well, which is quite nice. But the fruity side of the beer is pretty interesting too. So, I mean, I do suspect there's a little bit of Citra in here, maybe a little bit of Centennial as well, to be honest, because it does have a little bit of that kind of lemony sherbet quality to it, which is quite interesting. I do like that side of the beer. There's maybe a little touch of a limey note in there. I think some mangoes. I do suspect there's a bit of Citra in here, to be honest with you. But yeah, so a little bit of mango, a little bit of a kind of lemon limey note. As I say, I suspect maybe some Centennial. And there's a little bit of an almost, I do want to say there's a little bit of a kind of gooseberry note coming out of this one, or a sort of white grapey quality, which is quite interesting. Maybe they've used a little bit of Nelson Sauvin or something like that in here. So yeah, this beer, in terms of its aroma, it does have pretty much everything you would expect. If I was smelling this one blind, I wouldn't guess that it was up at around 12%. I'd think this is maybe a sort of 8-9% double IPA. You can smell a bit of the booziness in it, but in fairness, the malty side of things does cover up that booziness fairly well. So just bear that in mind when you have a smell of this beer. And as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma before you get stuck into it. And that's always half the experience when it comes to craft beers and whiskies and sakes and stuff like that. So always a good thing to do. But let's get stuck into this beer then. This one is the Waldo Special Ale, coming in at 11.7%, a double, triple IPA, however you want to describe it, from Lagunitas Brewing Company, originally from California over in America. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål. Ooh, yeah. Now, that's a pretty nice beer. Straight away with this one, you know, it does give you that kind of kick in the balls, if you like, to let you know this is a West Coast IPA. And this is one of the big things, you know, a lot of the craft beers that we're getting these days, I've said this in a good few videos now, a lot of the craft beers we're getting these days, everyone seems to be gravitating towards the, you know, the New England IPAs with that smaller bitterness and things. But the West Coast IPAs with the higher bitterness and the sweeter malty backbones and things like that do seem to be getting left behind, but it's a really quite nice style there. And I've always, I do miss the West Coast IPAs, and this one straight away you get such a big hoppy bitterness to this one. It's 100 IBUs, you know, maybe it's a little bit heavy, that, because this beer on the outside of my tongue I'm really just getting a really big, strong, dank, beastly sort of thing. And it says they put more beers in this, or more hops in this than would be required for 100 IBUs, but the beer itself is really quite nice. It's just, I guess after drinking so many New England IPAs recently, I'm just, you know, when you come across something that's as dank and as beastly as this, it's quite a shock to the system after such a while. Whereas if I drank this beer maybe back in 2015 or something like that, it wouldn't have been such a shock to the system. But yeah, when you take the second sip of this beer and you've got over that initial shock, because it does give you a good kick as soon as you take it in, once you've got past that big bit of, once you've got past that big bite there at the start, it's this beer, it really kind of settles down, it just smooths out a little bit, you get a little bit more malty, and you get some more kind of juiciness and fruitiness from the hops as well. So yeah, just take a couple of sips of this one and let your mouth adjust to it before you start judging it too closely. But to me, this one gets a thumbs up. I can see why this beer is pretty highly rated actually. You know, it covers its alcohol very well. I mean, you can tell that it's a bit of a boozy beast, but it does cover its alcohol content fairly well, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, let's take another sip of this one and start breaking the flavour of this beer down a little bit. So yeah, with this beer then, in the middle of your palate, you can feel a little bit of that nice kind of pale malty, slightly bready quality just blanket in the middle of your tongue. In the middle of your palate though, on top of that, you can feel, I do suspect they've used a little bit of two-row in here. To get when these American beers have a smoothness like this, it usually is some of the two-row malts that they've used in there. In the middle of your palate though, the further you go into the aftertaste with this, you do get a little touch of graininess coming out of the beer the further you go into the aftertaste, but in the very centre of the tongue you get a really nice caramelly sweetness there. As you move further out from the centre of your palate, it does become a little bit more biscuity, and it has that sort of McVitie's digestive kind of quality to it as well. But it's really nice. The malt base in this one, it's kind of very straight up, to be honest with you, but it's very nice how it all kind of fits together. So there's nothing particularly surprising about this beer in terms of its malt backbone. It is a bit of a beast, and you can get a little bit of an alcohol warmth down here with it, but everything fits together with this beer pretty nicely, I have to say. So big thumbs up to the guys at Lagunitas Brewing for the malt base in this beer. It does have that nice sweet backbone that you want, and you can feel though that malt base is just covering up the sheer amount of alcohol in this beer. 11.7% is pretty hefty when it comes to IPAs and things like that. But yeah, that's nice, and I'm finding the more and more that I'm drinking of this, the sweeter the centre of my palate is actually getting with this beer. So yeah, let's have a look at the hoppy side of things then. So in the back corners of the palate, I would say there's a little bit of a there's a little touch of earthiness there, but as you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, the earthiness just kind of fades away, and you get this really kind of quite spicy floral aromatic note out of the beer. It really does have a good bit of a kind of spicy dankness to it, to be quite honest with you, but around the very front curve of the palate it fades away a little bit and becomes a little bit more kind of grassy, and there's a little bit of the floral quality just lingering there as well. Like I say, at 100 IBUs, and this beer does have a good little bit of a kick to it, which is quite nice. Behind the front curve of the palate, of course, that's where you get that little oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer, and this one pulls it off really nicely actually. Yeah, so the fruity side of the beer, it's interesting. I mean, I do suspect, I think they might, I wonder if they've used a little bit of Chinook in here, because there is a little bit of a kind of dark grapefruity note to this beer. But at the same time, I think there might be a bit of, it really does, I think you can only get this level of dankness if you use something like Chinook, so I do suspect they might have used a little bit of Chinook in here. I wasn't picking that up in the aroma right enough, and that might have just been because, like I say, this beer, I won't be drinking this beer as fresh as you're going to get it in America, so do bear that in mind. But with the flavour, I really think they've used a bit of Chinook in here. You can only get as dark a grapefruit in that and as dank a sort of floral, spicy, kind of almost resinous note out of this beer if you are using Chinook, so I wonder if they have used a bit of that in here. But yeah, I like how that comes across. If you move a little bit further forward on the palate, I do wonder if there's a little touch of maybe a little touch of Citra in here, because there is a little bit of a kind of mango-y note. It's interesting. It's interesting how everything's going together in this beer, to be honest. Yeah. Is there a little bit of an orangey quality to this one as well? Could there be a little bit of Amarillo in there? I don't think it's Mosaic. I don't think it's Mosaic. The orangey quality that's in this beer is a little bit too kind of oily for me, but I do think there's maybe a little bit of Centennial in here. I would suspect there's Chinook, Citra, Centennial in this one at least. It's always interesting to play guess the hops with some of these beers, because it's you always, whenever you try beers that have got different hops and things like that in them, you always get little things that are a bit different. But I think there's Chinook in here. I do suspect there's a little bit of a Citra, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's Amarillo and some Centennial in there too. There's telltale signs of all of these different hops. So yeah, at the back of that fruity part of your palate, definitely a good little chunk of grapefruit in there. I suspect there's Chinook. I could be wrong. It could just be the Citra being brought out in a certain way, because Citra can give you a little bit of that grapefruity quality. In front of that though, you do get a little bit of a tropically fruit note, more of a mango for me rather than anything else. I think there might be a touch of Amarillo in here because there's some orangey flavours, and there's also a sort of lemon limey note to this one the further you go into it as well, which could, I mean, the big limey hop is Equinaut, but I think when this beer was developed, Equinaut wasn't really in the mix of things, so I would suspect that it might be more Centennial. Centennial's been around for quite a while, but you can also get some of these more limey flavours from Citra as well. But yeah, it's really interesting that, as I say, grapefruits, a little bit of mango, a little bit of an orange, and some kind of sort of limey quality to this beer as well, which is really interesting. The further you go into the aftertaste, the grapefruits linger in there, and it starts, some of the orangey flavours linger in as well, and also you get it leaning towards the limey side of things too. But I mean, overall, this is just, it's a bit of a monster of an IPA, to be honest with you, this one. 11, for a beer that's 11.7%, you know, this is starting to get into triple IPA category. It's a bit easy to drink in that regard, to be honest with you, but it is really quite nice, and I wouldn't hesitate to drink this again, but to be honest, at that ABV, this beer is a little bit of a treat, so do bear that in mind actually. So yeah, let's have a look at the mouthfeel then. So I would say that this beer is pretty full-bodied, I think that's fair to say. Yeah, carbonation's very smooth on this one. Big oily mouthfeel rather than anything else, and mainly a big oily beer this. Good bit of hoppy bitterness. I told you at the start of the video this one's 100 IBUs at least. It really does let you know that. It does have a big bit of resinous character. If you've been used to drinking these New England IPAs, that will be a shock to the system for you when you have this one. It does give you a bit of a kick in the balls, or the vagina, or the ovaries, or whatever you want to say if you're of the female persuasion, but it does give you a little bit of a kick, this one. But yeah, nice kind of sweet malty backbone to this beer. I would say it does sweeten up a little bit the more that you drink of it as well, and you've also got some really nice juicy fruity esters, but it does have a little bit of an alcohol warmth to it as well. But I mean, overall, a really nice West Coast IPA, this one, but do beware with this, it is a little bit of a beast. So this is one that you might want to share, but that's a problem for me at the moment. So, well, yeah, this is one that I'm going to have to finish off myself. But yeah, let's leave it at that then. This one was the Waldo's Ale, named after a group of friends who used to go and search the hills for weed plants that had been abandoned, apparently, using a treasure map. But yeah, it turned out to be a really nice beer. They brewed it with Tony McGee from Lagunitas, and it seems to be a beer that's become really quite highly regarded, and to be honest, I can see why. I'm sure if this beer was absolutely fresh, it would be, you know, kind of spot on, and even as it is, I guess this one's about 2 months old or something, it is still a pretty damn good beer, and it was cool to get this one for you, and to be able to review it for you too. So let's leave it at that. The Waldo Special Ale from Lagunitas Brewing Company, originally from Petaluma in California. Just a really interesting beer, this one, and it's been really cool to review yet another beer from such a well-known American craft brewery. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Lagunitas Brewing as well, and I'm sure we'll return to these guys in the fairly near future. Make sure you check out my social media, and I will catch you guys later. The Waldo Special Ale from Lagunitas Brewing Company in Petaluma, California. Slàinte, Skull.